Thank you for all coming to the Evansville Wartime Museum today on October 2nd, 2025. These helmets that are being passed out are just for little donations, but we're going to tell you what your donations did for this place in about 4.5 minutes. So we've got some things to do first. We're going to do a prayer, pledge of allegiance, and a song. So, first of all, Jack Buttram. Jack Buttram is only 95, and he is the, what you call a beginning of this museum. He helped start it in 2012. He's been a stalwart. We can't say enough about Jack. You come over here, Jack, or I'll hand you this microphone. He's going to say the prayer. He always says a very good prayer, but I'm sorry, he's only 96. I apologize. So, but he blew the bugle. You blew the bugle at when the Red Cross did something in 1941. He was 13 years old. He went to Bossy High School. That's on the east side of town.
Bow with me for a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you for this day and for allowing us to be a part of it. We ask your blessing on all that we do here. We meet today to learn some history about how our town met a major crisis, not related to war or threatening freedom, but rather an act of nature that we'll never forget. In 1937, Evansville endured major flooding of the Ohio River. Most sections of our town were at least affected by it. Today we'll explore how citizens of Evansville met the challenge of that event, and 4 short years later, we're prepared to be a major contributor to the World War II contributing. Thank you for your being here. Thank you for the major blessings that you have provided us. We ask your prayer, your assistance, your help in all that we do. We have extra crowds today. Be with them as they get their way home. Thank you, Father. Asking in holy name. Amen. Amen. Shall we stand for our pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Larry Head.
Please feel free to join in. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Okay, we have a couple things to talk about before we introduce our main speaker about the 1937 flood. First of all, let's put that on full screen. I want 4 of you to come up here if you don't mind. And I want you to get on stage, and then Rachel's going to say a couple words. But about a year ago, we asked for donations for, it was called the Ken Wilson Archives, and that's a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson there. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, this is Ken Wilson. He was a graphic designer. On the stage, please. He's a graphic designer from Alcoa, but his avocation was Whirlpool at that time, or before was Republic Aviation. He had records in his basement. You come over here, Rachel, over here. And so the next slide. You gave us money. You gave us about 10% of $96,000 for this, and she's going to just tell you a couple things she's done with his information. Rachel, just say a couple things. Next slide. This is the 3 people. Her back that one up. This is Rachel right next to me. As her name, she's a Murray State graduate, and Gloria Hintershare is a USI graduate in about a month, and they're the 2 that are digitizing and over. Next slide, please. This is Kira Long, and she's the consultant helping us digitize everything. Next slide. This is, talk about this.
So the picture on the right is a Christmas edition Republic Aviation newspaper that was published by Republic Aviation. This one is specifically from the Indiana division, or IDORA, and it's one of the focuses of Ken Wilson's archives.
Now, what's in those drawers in your hand up there?
In the drawer is the accumulation of the entirety of his research process. It's about 4 filing cabinets full plus the stuff on top. And it's, what, 50 years worth of research?
Yeah, 50 to 60 years. He spent his life doing this. Next slide.
This picture is from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's somewhat secret visit to the Indiana factory. And in the picture, Republic employee Irma Drain is giving the president a P-47 statue. Both her and her husband actually worked for the factory. Their 2 sons served in the war. One of them on an Air Force base in the UK, and the other was a German POW for 14 months. And he came home around the time this picture was taken. And then this is about the bingo riots from 1945. On July 11th, 1945, following issues with the mayor and the police chief, Evansville citizens rioted in the streets over the police chief's refusal to allow off-duty police officers to moonlight as security guards for the bingo gambling events, and it led to riots in the streets. And there is a second picture of them flipping a police car in the middle of the streets. And then on the left is the scanners that we use to just digitize all of this into the software, so that we all have multiple copies of the records so that they can later be shared with everybody.
Okay, the people up on stage are doing this project. We have a lot of students helping us, but these are one's graduating, one's going to graduate soon. But we hope to have this project done by spring of next year, and it's available to the world. So it's a man that worked, Mr. Ken Wilson, worked his whole life on this. And We just luckily got a hold of it, and we own it with Willard Library. When we get done scanning and indexing, it's going to go to Willard Library, but you'll be able to search it and find it on the web. It's a tremendous project for Evansville, and it could all be lost. The other major factories in New York, Farmingdale, New York, and they had 8,000 planes there, but they have nothing like what Ken collected. He talked to pilots, he talked to all kinds of people, and Mike Lynn's wife was best friends of Ken's daughter, and that's the only reason we have the collection. Thank you very much. Lots of events, and we flipped them on the stay up on the whatever that thing screen. We're on the monitor screen. We flipped them up there, but we got a thing called Boo. It's going from the 16th of October till about the 31st. So it's not just giving out candy. The kids have to come around here. We'll have it decorated like Halloween, but they're going to be able to learn something. There's about 12 different stations that they have to fill out some paperwork. The parents usually do it, but the parents learn something and have to tell the kids something. But kids will learn something from this. So bring your grandkids, nieces, and nephews out. We'd love to have them. We stretch it over that period of time when we're open from the 16th to the 31st. And our main speakers helped create this the last 3 or 4 years. And they would learn something besides just getting a high carbohydrate diet. There's this another thing that we had swinging around up there, and it's Dr. William Carey's going to talk about Afghanistan in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks from that time is a guy named Bill Bartell. Now he was a professor at Harrison High School. He is the Lincoln expert in Indiana. Him and Clay Combe have written a book. This book is hey, is it working? This book, is it working? This thing working? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. They've written a book about Lincoln between age 7 and 21 when he was in Indiana, okay? And everybody thinks Lincoln grew up in Illinois. Well, he did a lot in Indiana. And he is an expert. I cannot get him to talk about Lincoln. Can you hear me? Okay, but he's going to talk about the War of 1898 because he has relatives that were in that War of 1898, or his wife does, from Holland, Indiana. So he's going to talk about that. We've never had anybody talk about that, but this guy is one of our best historians in Evansville, Indiana, of unbelievable significance. He is the Lincoln expert. They only been studying probably 70 years. Okay, now the next, I think I've got those 2 announcements, and then we just love you to have come out here. And there's a guy named Alex Core. He's a podiatrist. He lives in Terre Haute, and he's going to talk on October 25th at 10:30 in the morning, right in this building, and it's free to you, and we might have some snacks. But it's free, 10:30, and you got to get your clock ready. You can go eat breakfast and come here. But he is going to talk about his dad. His mother has talked multiple times. Her name's Eva Kors. She's an identical twin who was experimented on by the SS, by the Nazis. But his dad was stuck in Auschwitz for a year and a half, so he's going to talk about that. So I think you would love to hear it. It's free to all of you. So now, this is going to be our lecturer, and I'm going to introduce her. Don't come out here yet. Okay, this lady is named Dona Bone, but I will just tell you a few things. This lunch is sponsored by the Bronstein Foundation. We have the Trotwins that have helped do this. We have Ben, he's on the city council, and Wayne should be here, and Jill, and they're sitting in the back row. But they have been instrumental. They supported us about 4 years ago when we were in our infancy, and they've been a big supporter, and that's why you're getting that free lunch. Now this girl to my right, to your left, if you start walking in the front room, then you walk to the left, you walk to the right. When we were in our infancy period, she's got what you call work ethic. And I've not seen much work ethic in many people. She is a worker, she's a creator, she's a developer, she's a little bit of everything. We have a bus trip that we've been giving to people, and she initiated that, started. She's given 7 different bus trips that we advertise up there. They don't start till the spring. But the bus trip goes around where World War II factories were in Evansville. She talks about them. We've had full buses each time. She's created that herself. The front room she's touched up with Rich Hawkinsmith and Mike Tiemann. The next room over there where the Chrysler exhibit. Behind that little home, she helped create that little home with the help of Mr. Hawkinsmith and Mr. Guy from Industrial Contracts, Jim Kanzer and Walter Kyle. And then and John Gross put the wallpaper on with his wife. But that's a World War II home that a lot of women like. She helped build that. The back of it's got all women from World War II and supporters of World War II effort. And on the back of the Holocaust Museum, she's got everything about Chrysler. So And then you go to this other room over in there, it's a railroad room. Her and Rich Hopkinsmith put that together. That's the railroad room where it's also the Red Cross room, where it was very significant. We're going to talk about how important the Red Cross was in 1937. But this lady has helped us a ton. And I can't tell you how much she's given this museum. She's given her heart, her soul, her funds, her everything. And we would love to have other people like her. So I can get you a free red shirt if you want to do something like her. Okay. This is Donna Bone. I can't say enough about her. Okay, Donna.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Before I get started, I want to elaborate on what Mark mentioned that starts October 16th to the 31st. We call it the We Can Boo It event. It's designed for kids of all ages to come, and we'll have scavenger hunts where they go around the museum to find answers to questions, and we'll have skeletons dressed in World War II attire pointing to the answers to the questions, kind of help them out a little. On those weekends, there's 2 weekends during that time, Saturdays and Sundays at 12:30 and 2:30. We're going to be having local celebrities up here reading Halloween stories for kids. We have Jeff Lyons, Angie Humphrey, the mayor, Stephanie Terry will be here. So we have a lot of folks from the community coming in to read on the weekends as well. So it'll be a fun event. There'll be treat bags for the kids. So a great time to bring your grandkids here to the museum and have a good time over Halloween. Okay? Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Evansville Wartime Museum. It's a beautiful day in Evansville. But it's been kind of an up and down year, hasn't it? We started in January with an ice storm where I lost power for 4 days. Then there was April when we had 6 inches of rain in 1 week. That's when my basement flooded. Then we had hot July and August. Just seems to get hotter every year, doesn't it? Then we had about 6 weeks of almost no rain. It's just crazy. But I'm not going to complain, because this isn't even close to what happened in the tri-state area in 1936 and 1937. Oh, and that picture behind me, that wasn't last January. That was 1937. Because those folks woke up on the 10th of January to have everything coated in ice, and that was just the beginning of what, well, actually, that was right in the middle of what happened to them during this time. It all started, believe it or not, in the summer of 1936. We had one of the hottest summers on record, before and after. The high temperature in the state of Indiana was 118 degrees. Some of the other states had even higher temperatures. Oklahoma is 120, Arizona 123, California 126. Arkansas 120. It was hot, people. And back then, almost no air conditioning. Can you imagine what it must have been? I can't sleep when I'm warm. It's got to be cool in the room. It had to have been miserable. Now, there was something else going on in the city the summer of 1936. They were building the plaza, the Riverfront Plaza during that time. And these photos that you see behind me were found in the basement of Jennifer and Mark Browning's house last week. And he brought the binder in and he let me borrow it. I scanned everything in it, including these photos. But it must have been a huge project. And can you imagine how hot it must have been while they were trying to build this in that heat? Now here's a look at it completed. Sharp, isn't it? It has a little bit of an Art Deco flair to it. Take a little bit, see that? Sort of reminds me of the Art Deco flair. And look at those boulevard lights. Those are nice. Now here's an aerial look at the plaza right after it was done. This picture was taken November, December 1936. interesting. It's hard to recognize the Evansville city downtown landscape looking at this picture. There are some oldies but goodies there. If you look here, there's the courthouse. Right across the street's the Coliseum. Down here you can see the post office. And even though it's hard to see, over here is the Chicago and Eastern Illinois Railroad station. So there are some buildings there, but a lot of those up here in front are long gone. So take a close look at this picture, right? December 1936. 1 month later, it was underwater. So that brand new Riverfront Development Center is underwater, and all you can see are those boulevard lights. You can't even see the road right in front of them. So let's start back in December. This was published in Chicago News, and it shows the heights of the river starting in January. Now the rain actually started in December. And then, like I said, the morning of June 10th, there's an ice storm. And the river was at 35.5, right around flood stage back then. And the numbers just keep going up and up and up and up until the 31st of January, when it crested at 53 feet, 0.7. And then in February, you can see the numbers start going back down. And under that, you see 4 previous times when the river got fairly high. So in 1883 and 84, they must have had a lot of rain, and the river went up to 47 and 48 feet then. 1913, 48 feet. And 1937, of course, is the big one. Believe it or not, those 6 inches of rain we had last April made the top 10 in terms of, and I'll show you that in a minute. All right, so let's take a close look at this timeline. You can see the heat wave starts in July and August of 1936. Late December, heavy snow, rainfall comes in. July 9th, we're at flood stage, 35 feet. January 10th is when that thick coating of ice shows up. The 10th to the 18th is when the flood warnings start getting out. 13th through the 24th, the city had 16 inches of rain in 11 days. January 24th, the governor declares martial law. Ohio River is at 53.74. January 26th, levels reached 80 feet in Cincinnati when flood stage was 52 there. Louisville hit 85.4, flood stage was 55. 70% of Louisville was underwater. Paducah was at 60 feet, and their flood stage is 50. And February 20th, we finally got below flood stage. In early February, there was a severe windstorm that started to shake some of the buildings that were already in bad shape because of the flood. They had been weakened. On February 13th, the martial law is revoked, and Mayor William Just reports that nearly half of the city had been covered by water, and damage was in the millions. This is the McCurdy. This was the headquarters for what was going on in Evansville at the time. And look at, the water is right up until almost the front door. And its boats would come there and unload supplies. The Ohio River surpassed, in 1937, all prior floods during the previous 175 years and modern occupancy on the Ohio River, and it's believed that it outdid any previous flood that hit the Ohio Valley. I like to think of it as the Evansville being the Venice of Indiana, because it really does look like Venice in this postcard of the 1937 event. Now, because of the water on that brand new development project, by the time the water goes down, now there are cracks, and so it has to be repaired. 2/3 of Evansville was underwater during this flooding period. On January 31st, the water was a foot deep at 8th and Main Streets. 500 city blocks in all of Union Township were a lake, and about 7,500 structures in the Evansville area were damaged. Red Cross nurses, 51 Red Cross nurses came to the city of Evansville and started giving typhoid shots to evacuees. This was published, here's another article that was published in the Sigico newsletter, basically saying Evansville was the only flooded city that still had power. And the reason for this is they put a group of men down in deep into a tunnel, then barricaded everything around them with concrete, tarps, cement, you name it, timbers and brick, to protect them from the water. And those men are what kept the power supply coming during the time that the water was coming in. It said manholes and conduit openings were blocked and sealed, cable ends filled with hot pitch. When the waters started to reach the transformers, the employees fought the currents to encircle the substations with tarps. When the coal went underwater, a barge with a dip bucket dipped the coal from one barge to another in order to drain it so that it could go into a hopper. And the newspaper articles at the time also talked about the fact that this is what was going on to save the power supply for the city of Evansville. In fact, it even states in here that there were 10,000 tons of coal that they had hoped would last 50 or 60 days to get them through the flood while they did this. There's an aerial look above. I think this is closer to the west side. The downtown area would have been right over here somewhere. But you can see it was nasty. Here's another look above. I just can't imagine what that must have been like with all that water. Now here's a look from the west side facing northeast. You can tell right about here is Sigico, and over there is the Mee Johnson Terminal. So you got your downtown area over here. This is the waterworks. You can see the boulevard lights and the water all the way up into the front of the stores that would have been facing the river. There's those boulevard lights lit up. So we know that power supply was working, right? That is Anchor Supply, by the way, and right next to it, to the left of it, would have been the McCurdy Hotel. To the right of it, and it showed up in some of the pictures I was looking at, is a Graham Brothers car dealership. Graham Brothers started in Evansville in the early 1900s and built the plant that was eventually taken over by Chrysler. And there's a map coming up where it still says Graham Brothers on it, where Chrysler is, but by that time, Chrysler had already taken over, so it must have been a fairly old map. Okay, here's another look. There's McCurdy. You can see the water is all the way up here. This is Keller Crescent to the left. Graham there, and that is Shane right there. Those heavy winds started blowing some of the buildings, and a lot of damage occurred. This is Anchor Supply. Here's a better look of that same area where the building started to fall down on the riverside. Now here's a map of Evansville. Now this is what I mean. Must have been a fairly old map, because as I looked up here, where Chrysler is supposed to be, it says Graham Brothers. And those areas shaded here, that's where all the water was. Now, communication is tough during this time. Radio broadcasts consisted mostly of messages that the rescue crews were giving civil agencies and back. The gentleman in the lower right-hand corner is George Van Horn. He was a freelance newspaperman at the time, eventually worked for WGBF as a reporter, but he kept the community informed on the flood conditions via an official Red Cross broadcast. The government response was fairly quick. They had an Army Corps of Engineers dispatch an entire fleet down the Cumberland River for rescue work. But the problem is, the river was so high that the bridges were low, and it was hard to get those boats under those bridges because of how high the water was. And so those boats that were coming down the river had to go across farmland to get to the cities that they were designated for. Now, the government and the president sent thousands of Works Progress Administration workers to help out. This is a dock right outside the Hotel McCurdy where trucks would be loaded and boats would be unloaded from the river, and the timber and whatever was coming in would be loaded into the trucks and would delivered around the city. There's another look at that platform. You can see the Hotel McCurdy sign on the right. 90,000 people in Evansville evacuated or were forced out of their homes. Many of them left by railroad and some by highways until those were too high for the people to get out. Taking a warm bath was a luxury. And according to this newspaper article, some of the workers left town and went to some places outside of Evansville to get a warm bath before they came back and did their work. And on the upper right-hand corner, it says those people who left by train and were coming back by train had to be registered at the train station before they could get back into the city. This is sandbagging along Highway 41. These are the two train stations in Evansville, Louisville and Nashville on the left at Fulton and Ohio Street. And on the right, you see the Chicago and Eastern Illinois that was on 8th Street with Cook's Brewery in the background. Now, a lot of the refugees in the city were sent to some of the bigger buildings, in this case, Sears. Some of you may already know this, but the Sears building here in Evansville was the first retail store for Sears and Roebuck in the United States. It actually opened up at Northwest 4th Street in 1920, and a lot of refugees were sent there, probably the display beds used for sleeping. The Army actually had to bring in a fresh water supply because a lot of the water in the area had been contaminated. Refugees at Chrysler and at the Coliseum. This is Chrysler down here, Coliseum up there. Thought that was a cute little article I found up there. It said, Ideal Dairy turned the third floor meeting room into a dormitory for their manufacturing people, the Coast Guard and others. They kept cots going 24 hours a day while out assisting crews with the task of moving furniture of vacated homes to upper floors to save them from the floodwaters. And this Otto Schrader said he borrowed bed linens for the dormitory and marked each owner's name into what he thought was indelible ink. But when the linens came back from the launders, the ink was not indelible. And he washed out. He said, I made some people mad. Now, at the time, it was illegal to have the African Americans mixed in with the Caucasians, so the Caucasian evacuees were sent to Lincoln High School, as racial segregation legally prohibited blacks and whites from sharing the same facilities. Fresh water trucks bringing water to people. They would come to the truck with pails and pitchers and stuff and fill them up, and that's what they would have to drink when they got back home. This is a look at the airport. Nobody's flying in and out of there unless you have one of those things that land on water. There's another look at the airport. You can see the runways a little bit, like here and there. This is where Republic would eventually be built and where Whirlpool is now. Here's another look at the flood. This is First and Locust Streets between the Hotel McCurdy on the left, right here, and the Hotel McCurdy garage, which was on the right. So this is that wooden platform that was built to help out. There's Dogtown Tavern over there on the right. This is a look at Cook's Brewery on Main Street, 8th Street actually. Another look at Cook's Brewery. This is a view from 7th and Main Street. You can see Assumption Church in the background, Cook's Brewery right in here, and a jeweler over here on this corner. This is Dade Park, which was later renamed Ellis Park when the new owner took over. American Theater on Main Street on the left, the Alhambra Theater on Adams on the right. This Woods Drugs on the left on 2nd and Alhambra at Adams. Bossy High School. Surrounded by water. This is an aerial look of the high school. You see all that white stuff? I think that's snow. So with all of this water, high water and stuff, they still had snow. Here's a look at Washington Grade School that was still being built at the time. There's Central High School. This is some of the damage. You know, the water is bad enough. It's what happens when the water goes back down when your real problems start. Here's a look at the Brown Derby, which is now where the House of Como is. This is Division and Main Street. See the Holman building in the background. This is Iglehart Mill out there on First Avenue. And since we're on the subject of Iglehart Brothers, there's a brand new exhibit on the Iglehart Brothers in the Homefront Gallery. So be sure and take a look at that before you leave today. So this is on the river looking down Main Street. Like I said, Venice, what it looked like. McCurdy Hotel, like I said earlier, was the headquarters for flood operations. They took the boilers out of the basement of the McCurdy Hotel and moved them up on the street so they could heat the hotel rooms. This is the White Swan Laundry. Lamasco Bank that was at the corner of Fulton and Franklin Street. So even all the way out on the west side, there's lots of water. This is Franklin at St. Joe. This is the 2300 block of Franklin, and that's the inside of Franklin Drug. See where the water is? South Morton Avenue. Barker Avenue. You know, I think this must be close to Broadway, because it's a lot lower there than it is on the rest of Barker, which kind of starts to go up. Here's a trolley car, or streetcar, on Washington Avenue near Bossy High School. Now the animals are affected too, so you know, your first thought is to get yourself out of the water's way, but you got to think about the animals. I believe I read that was a mule up in that tree there, and these are cows inside the living room of somebody's house, and these are dogs trying to get away from the water. The fatalities now, all up and down the river, total fatalities, 383, but only one of them was from Evansville, and that one was because of a heart attack. So no deaths really because of the flood here in the tri-state area. 1 million people were left homeless as a result of the Ohio River flood. Property losses reached 500 million, which is 11.3 billion in today's dollars. Only one town on the river managed to escape floodwaters. They stayed above the crest. Now, if I've told you the answer to this, keep your mouth quiet. For those of you I didn't talk to, what is the city that did not flood?
Mount Vernon?
Mount Vernon, Indiana. Mount Vernon was built on a bluff. And this is what they advertised after the flood. High and dry, Mount Vernon, Indiana. The only city of any size on the Ohio River that was safely above the crest of the 1937 river. Now, and here's a photo. See, the river is over to the left, so you can see it came all the way up to this street here, but the downtown area starts right in here, and it stopped before it got past that point. Now, that's not to say that the water didn't flood everything around the city. We'll get to that in a minute. So now we're going to start looking at cleanup, because that's when the problems just start taking its toll, right? Now you're dealing with mud and mold and just everything being dirty. That's a mule wagon trying to pull a car through a field in Posey County. On the left, on the right, is damaged furniture. In the middle, I thought this was interesting. They had built a barricade for a telephone operator so that they would be elevated, and if the waters got into the building, it wouldn't hurt the machinery that they were using. These are some cleanup efforts in Posey County. You can see on the left, a lady is trying to clean the mud and silt and garbage on the floor of her house. On the right, it doesn't look like this house was bolted down real well, because when the waters came, it started to float. On the left, some damaged furniture. They're trying to clean the mud off of it. And on the right, this particular house, they had moved all their furniture to the second floor, but the piano's too heavy, so they just basically elevated it up off the floor. Now, here are some numbers I got from the Posey County agricultural report right after it. Look at the crops that were lost: 200,000 bushels of corn, 2,000 bushels of oats, 4,000 soybeans, 6,000 wheat. And the animals, they lost 50 head of cattle, 20,000 chickens, 1,900 hogs, 10 horses, 75 mules, and 100 sheep. Here are some more cleanup efforts. The one on the left is actually from Cincinnati, but you can see the people out in the street trying to clean everything up. A lot of them are those Work Progress Administration workers. This is a pump trying to take the water out of the Holman building in downtown Evansville. There were tent cities in the area. This one was at Highway 41 in Riverside. That table has Bibles, and the two ladies in front of the table are from the Salvation Army. The man on the right is wearing a uniform. Here's another look at a tent city. Luxurious accommodations with your restroom close by. Here's a look inside one of the stores in Evansville, and a quote from Phil Drockman that said, "A lot of the rehab work was done by the National Red Cross long after the flood was over. These crews stayed for a good year helping to clean up." This is the inside of a drugstore in Evansville. This is an artist's rendering of the Ohio River Valley, showing where all the Red Cross stations were. And it's hard to read, but the information in the box is very interesting. So I typed it so you can see it. So basically it says 12,721 square miles in 196 counties and 12 states affected 1.5 million people with this flood. Over 1 million people were rescued, sheltered, fed, clothed, and given medical and nursing care. 97,000 families, or over 437,000 people, were rehabilitated with household goods. $25 million were contributed for relief. 7,727 rescue and relief boats were sent up and down the river. There were 1,575 refugee centers and tent cities that housed almost 700,000 people. 315 emergency hospitals organized for 16,000 patients. Almost 2,500 nurses and almost 1,500 family care workers that formed almost 10,000 workers required for the national staff. 44,207 volunteers served in the disaster areas. 19,000 tons of donated supplies were distributed, valued at $2 million. There were 8 regional offices, 340 local and relief headquarters established in 196 flooded and 144 refugee counties. Now, the government responds after this is all over and passes a law, passes the Flood Protection Act to ensure that the damage caused by this flood doesn't happen again. The federal government provides $55 million, and the city of Evansville and Vanderbilt County provided the land. The project begins in 1939, but doesn't end until 1994. It took them over 40 years to get through this project. So it's the levee project, the local levee project here in Evansville, that resulted in almost 80,000 feet of earth levees, 8,175 feet of concrete walls, 1,761 feet of combined walls and highways, 3,000 feet of roadway levees, 20 pumping stations, 24 movable closures, and 15 sandbag closures. Now, I was seeing various levels of flood stations. I was seeing in some place 35, and in others like 42. So I thought, well, what is normal for Evansville? And I looked this up last night, and this is what we reported. When the river's at 24 feet, it's at near flood level. When it's at 42 feet, it's at minor flooding. 48 is moderate, and 52 feet is major flooding for the city of Evansville. Now, since 1940, the Ohio River has been above flood stage 41 times. Since 1950, the Ohio River has been above 30 feet 138 times. Now, these are the top 6 times. Number 1, of course, being the 37th flood. 2 and 3 is 84 and 83. 1914 is number 4, and number, 5 on the list is 1945. Number 6 is the one that happened this year. So April 12th, it made it to 48 feet, the Ohio River. The end. So I know they were passing around a clipboard so that we could gather some questions. Do we have any of those questions already? You want to bring that up and I'll read it? No, there's nothing on it. Does anybody have a question? Yes.
Testing, testing.
All of those docks? Yes, yes, yes. Because the Hotel McCurdy, there was no water in its front yard back then, and it looked like it did today. So yes, those docks were built in a hurry so that the boats could come in up as close to the Hotel McCurdy as they could, and they would unload supplies, and then there would be trucks ready with the WPA workers loading the trucks so the supplies could be delivered throughout the city.
I'm on the west side,
Repeat the question,
He wants
please.
to know how far on the west side did it flood. I don't know exactly. Okay. I'll repeat it. She said she lived on Franklin, west of St. Joe, and the waters apparently.
Put the microphone up there. Talk. Go ahead. No, can't hear her. Got to be on. Just let her tell her story. Okay, here's another one. Here you go. Tell us your name. I know your name. Tell us your name.
Evelyn Reisinger, and I lived at 2517 West Franklin Street. Well, my father told us when I was 10 years old that we better go down to my grandma's in the country to spend the night because something was going to break And I was waiting for you to say something about that. I picked up one that I thought might be. Anyway, we did go to the country, and when we came back the next day, the water was a half a block away. So that was just short of Sacred Heart Church in that area. That's on that side of the street, you know, that it was.
Anyone else?
Jim Hitch, go over to Jim Hitch over there, Mike. Jim Hitch is, stand up, Jim, and tell us what you experienced. Jim's birthday. How old are you, Jim?
99. I was 11 years old and lived in Princeton, Indiana. My grandmother, Aunt Nan, lived in a house right across from Washington School that they were building. We had to come down to get her. In those days, radio was a way you learned things about. We could not come down Highway 41. We had to come down Stringtown Road. Stringtown Bridge over Pigeon Creek was flooded about a foot deep, I remember, and Dad had to drive very carefully across that and was given directions how to get down to Washington Avenue to a circuitous route to pick up Aunt Nan to take her back to Princeton for a couple of weeks.
Any other questions?
We got one here.
The guy close to.
Okay, this is Norman. Say everything.
We lived on, we're Diamond Cross's First Avenue. And there was a ridge there, even though the road wasn't there, but it was a high spot. We lived north of there. To get to town, my dad had to go out First Avenue to Allen's Lane, over it, up around Cratchville Road, all the way around Highland School, come back, and could cross at the bridge at Stringtown. It had water on it, but you could drive through it. And that's how he had to get to work. He was able to work, though. He could get to the factory where he worked at the time, yeah.
Anybody electrician here? Can you hear me? Anybody electrician here can tell us how that electric worked? Even though Siggy was working, or Donna, you might know. How'd that all, was electricity under the ground or above ground? Okay, so Mr. Hawkinson says above ground, so that's why a lot of that worked.
Got a question.
Go ahead.
I lived,
Say your name, Maggie.
Maggie lived in, at that time, I was 4 years old.
Louder.
I was 4 years old, and my mother told me to go into the bathroom and run water in the tub. And I did. And I put in enough to take a bath. And she said, oh no, you have to fill it up because that will be our only water source for drinking and cooking and spit baths. So that was my 4-year-old experience with a 37 flood.
Hey Donna, I got a question. Are there any places in Evansville now on buildings that were down there that they either have plaques or marks built into them on where the flood
I
was?
don't know.
Any
Does
marks?
anybody else know? They said there used to be, I'm hearing, but
There's one at Ellis Park on the second floor. I was there
Ellis
one
Park on
time.
the second floor.
There's one at Ellis Park. I was there one time a couple of years ago, and on the second floor, where the restroom is, I saw a plaque on the wall that said this was the level of the 1937 flood.
A lot of the buildings are gone. Yeah.
Well, find somebody else, Mike. Katrina happened in 2005, and the damage there was $125 billion. So Donna said this one was $5 billion. What did you say this was? 11 billion.
Right, or something like that.
11.5 billion. So that was 125 billion. So this was 1/10 of, and that's in today's dollars, 1/10. But that all of a sudden, that was a typhoon, and there were 1,300 deaths. So this, she said, only one death. Here, we had time to run away. You got somebody back there? Anybody else questions? Yeah, okay, we got Larry. Larry Head's going to ask a question here. You got a statement then?
Okay, can you hear me? My father and his brother claimed to be the last two guys to drive across the Maryland Street Bridge on Pigeon Creek, which was flooded. And they were taking a nurse to the east side. And there was the martial law had already been established, and there were guards on the bridge. And they shined a flashlight on this nurse's uniform, and they let him go through. He said water was about a foot up over the bridge. But that's how they took her back.
Any other questions? My grandfather had a business downtown, and at each corner they had a white little building. They were outhouses set up in February of that year for people to go to the bathroom. And when I was in the military, when we had typhoons over in Japan, the very first thing they bring is, they call them water buffaloes. It was just they bring a big tank of water, because water salmonella becomes a problem because everything's contaminated. So if you don't have a water supply, you got a big problem. And I don't know how they solved all that. Did you see anything much on how they got all the water to them, Donna?
Well, just other than, bringing it by truck to the neighborhoods. Yeah, milk trucks.
And Red Cross became famous. He said milk trucks would bring some of the water, but the Red Cross became famous because it's 37 flood. It became nationally known to help with the 37 flood, and partly because of Evansville. Anybody else questions? Well, thank you for coming today, and thank you, Donna, for all your hard work and excellent talk.
Mm-hmm.